colleagues and listeners, here we are again, still from Seville, and I'm happy to say still with Lothar, who's the head of airport technology and also a board member with Goldhofer. Now, we started off with the benefits of electric GSE, and we decided to break it down into 4 episodes. So this is the second episode now, which is battery reliability. Literally, hot topic, no pun intended, and it's something that, people aren't fully aware of. So, Lothar, if I may, just give us a brief description, okay, of the longevity and also the safety of the batteries, okay? Because I'm not sure, but I'm sure that people know there are different types of lithium batteries, okay, and the quality varies substantially. And I'm not being negative about any particular, manufacturing or products. But it is a fact of life. And now with everybody seeing TikTok and seeing all these videos and everything catching fire, which we've got to be careful of. The question I'd like to start with is, there's too much uncontrolled availability, in my opinion. This is just my opinion, okay? I'd just be interested to hear what yours is. And do you think now is the time, urgently and quickly, that there's some sort of regulated guidelines and almost like an aviation lithium battery manual that has to be put out, similar to the dangerous goods, so that there's clarity and there's also control? Because if we keep letting these things happen, it's going to reduce the confidence in operators. It's going to reduce the confidence in the public. It's going to make everybody a bit more concerned. And we've already heard that there's, in some airports, the fire authorities are saying you can't use lithium battery, yet the fire authorities have got lithium batteries in their own equipment. So what do you think of that?
First of all, it's a big yes. So everything you just stated is absolutely true. And of course, it's a young industry. So there's a lot of experiments going on. But when we started our electrification initiatives, one key element of our strategy was, to define partners where we feel, those are competent partners and they will be available for the next 15, 20 years, because we have seen a lot of lighthouse projects, with young companies, startups, nothing wrong about it, but industrialization and the background of a company is extremely important. Therefore, we decided in a very early phase of our strategy that we are going to work with partners that are either active in the commercial vehicle industry or even in the automotive industry. That was one of our key decisions, because these guys actually do take care of necessary certifications, because for public transport, for instance, you have to apply the highest safety standards, And the second element for that decision was clear. Our industry, even if it's a fast-growing industry, is by far too small to generate real cost regressions, So scaling of the industry, scaling of volumes is a key driver for cost to make it attractive, make it competitive.
Exactly.
So that was the second point for us to decide, we need to work with partners that are players in the commercial vehicle or even automotive industry, because as of today, and everybody knows that, electric equipment, especially the battery, is still more costly than what we used to know from conventional drivetrains. I'm 100% sure this is going to change with the scaling, the volumes going up with these players. That was a key element for our decision.
Yeah, no, it makes sense, and it also gives a bit more credibility as well to what's going on.
Yeah.
But what it also does is it safeguards the safety element as well, because those types of companies, and again, I'm more than happy to mention Lufthansa in there. I remember when I was there, even the audits that used to take place, regular, focused, and people were okay with findings.
Yeah.
So it's not a tick box check exercise just to have a certificate on the wall. So I think fair play to them. And that's the way it should be, because some of the injuries and some of the accidents that can happen is just terrible. It's terrible, and it beggars belief that the production organisations of the poor quality that they even continue to do it themselves. So if that's the case, it's got to be regulated.
Yeah,
it's got to be regulated. Now, another question, and I know this is something that you're very focused on: system integration and thermal management. So not only just which battery, but how do you actually look after those batteries, and what elements of the production of the product make that difference?
It's obviously controlling your system, monitoring your system is one of the key elements. That again comes with sophisticated battery technology. So you measure temperature, you measure current on all the individual cells in a battery system. So to understand what the condition of your battery system as the key element in the electric drivetrain is, I think that is key to understand, is the battery operating, first of all, in a safe area, in a safe, under safe conditions, and obviously, what is the goal of doing all that, to prolong, extend the life of the battery. So the battery is a little bit like a human being. It feels very comfortable in a certain temperature range, which is 25 to 35 degrees roughly. And the longer you keep a battery in that temperature range, the longer the lifetime of the battery will be. And obviously, as we all know, this is not a stable state the battery is in. You request power from the battery, you need to charge the battery, and that usually drives up temperature levels because the battery starts to sweat. It has to do something, And to control that procedure, we decided, especially for performance applications, to go for a actively managed thermal conditioning of the battery. We do that by liquid cooling of the battery, active liquid cooling of the battery, and that allows us, even under severe requirements, discharging or charging, the battery remains in that safe or stable temperature band. And simulations clearly show, not just simulations, but real-time data, that this improves the state of health of the battery. So,
which is also so important, isn't it?
It is. I mean, again, in all the sessions, we will somehow touch the topic of efficiency. I mean, it's additional cost, initial purchasing cost in such a vehicle. So batteries are still more expensive than a diesel engine, obviously. It's slowly changing, but that will take quite some time until we have reached comparable cost levels like for the electric drivetrain, let alone the after treatment, exhaust after treatment systems. That's a different issue.
But specialists, procurement management, those that do the final signature, the operators, the maintenance guys, anybody that looks at it and wonders what it is and why and should it be the right choice, etc. Everybody needs to understand these things.
Absolutely, yeah. That's one of the key challenges, and here I must be very open. Not every organization is prepared yet to have that kind of a discussion. They are very professional organizations that are open to apply this new approach already, not just talking about a purchasing price of a piece of equipment, but rather talk about how can we implement the necessary change in our business model to apply these new technologies and thereby create greater efficiency in our operations and create greater safety in our organizations.
I've got my future son-in-law. He does installations of battery charging points, and he's always telling me about green this, green that, and everything. We have some great chats and debates and a little bit of teasing. But one of the things that I'm gradually starting to appreciate is his commitment to the future, which is, it's admirable. And the thing that I keep coming up to him with is like, you need to tell me about the second life and about how to influence a second life. But also what happens with the batteries eventually when nothing does, when there's nothing more that can be done. But one of the things, again, that I think everybody needs to understand is you've got a battery that's made for a certain purpose. You look after it well. Obviously, it reduces in capability and output and everything. But if you've looked after it well, it's got that second life opportunity. And then maybe it can go on to do something else. And then maybe, so prolonging that eventual, what do you do with a useless battery? That's also part of the understanding and capability and awareness, isn't it, of people.
Brings me back to the point I mentioned when we started our strategy. Today this is not a big issue yet, because obviously we are in the first generation of batteries used in our equipments. Obviously we do have a longer history in some vehicle applications already, on-road applications, but that was part also for our selection to work with companies, with partners that have a strategy on either second life or recycling of material. Because it's a matter of how can we use our resources in the most efficient and sustainable way. And we implemented this by our strategy, working with these partners, that we open up opportunities. Usually you take a battery out of the vehicle when the state of health is at around 80%, sometimes 75 or 70%, which is still okay, because then at some point the battery also loses a little bit performance, not energy, but performance. And there we also have strategies to work, for instance, using these batteries as buffer batteries for peak shaving initiatives. So even with the same customer, you can apply an approach. Okay, first life, use it in your tractor. Second life, we install it in your buffer battery for peak shaving applications. But of course, and this is somehow for the good already regulated, at least in the European Union, that there is an obligation for a recycling strategy for a battery that is really out of potential use.
Exactly. I just want to ask you a little off-piece question here. Mm-hmm. Okay. So in principle, and I'm sure, and don't worry if you're not 100% sure, but it's something I'd love to know. When eventually, okay, you've got to get rid of it or recycle it or whatever. If you look at the earth metals, the new earth metals that are needed, and people were talking about several years ago. You look at the new earth metals, and you look at the global capability to produce them. Is there less stock or less availability than going back to the traditional oil and gas?
I wouldn't say though. It's a matter of how much of these materials you need to apply in your technology. And again, we're still in a very young phase of that, or early phase of that technology. My expectation is, and if you look at the developments with the battery manufacturers, also driven by the car industry, for instance, the reduction of these critical materials in the battery, this is one of the key focus areas everybody is looking at, because yes, these are materials that are not as widely available as oil, for instance, but I think we will see significant changes in the number or the volume of these materials applied in future battery technologies. So this is, we're right now, and we must accept it, we're in the first generation. From a resource perspective, this is not an already mature state we're in, though there's still a lot of work necessary to make it really across the value chain, make it really a sustainable resource-based application and technology.
Brilliant. Lothar, that's the end of the second episode, and my takeaway from that is about how to manage the batteries so that we get longer life and we don't have to look too much to what happens with the recycling or the end of life use. So very good, lovely. I'm learning. Love to learn about this subject. So thank you very much, and we'll kick off in another few minutes with the third episode. So thank you.
Appreciate it. Thank you.